Appreciate your coverage of the CCHA and college hockey. Obviously, it's very appreciated by all of us in this group. And I think I heard Tom kind of mention this is the next step, right? It's another checklist item in our calendar that means things are really coming forward here. So we're looking forward to it. And in terms of our team for next year, we're a much more experienced team, in an era where there's not a lot of young teams right now because of that fifth year of eligibility. And you look at Augustana last year, I think they had 5, 6 fifth-year guys. We've had one fifth year in my whole time here. So we had 11 first-year players last year. We were a very young team, and there's just challenges with that. No matter how you slice it up, when you're a young team and in an era when everybody's old, there's some challenges there. So we're a lot more experienced team this year. We like that about it. Some valuable development last year and a little bit more experience led by 8 seniors. 2 of those seniors are wearing a letter for us. Our captain, Grant Heinman's, an unbelievable young man, a great leader. He's not a guy that maybe shows up in the score sheet with assists and goals, but plays in a lot of critical situations, a great defender, often plays against the other team's top line. And you can't, if you ever have a chance to hear this young man speak or be around him, he's an unbelievable human being. So he'll lead us in our locker room and have the pulse of this team, which is really important. Dawson Tritt, another one of our seniors, assistant captain, will join him. Timo Backus is not wearing a letter, but he's another one of those critical seniors. Both Dawson and Timo have played every situation since they've been here 3-4 years ago. Both those guys, Grant's at 95 college games played. Dawson and Timo, I think, are both at 106 or just over 100 games. We haven't had a lot of that. And, we played teams like the Pietla Twins and other guys around the country that played 140 games. That's a lot of experience. It's tough to overcome. So we finally have some of that in our lineup, and those guys that I mentioned will be a big piece of that. Obviously, the other big piece up front, and there's others taking a step, new guys coming in, but our assistant captain, junior Connor Milburn, I think Perry just mentioned, preseason co-player of the year and on the first team, and certainly deserving of that. He's the top returning point per game player in the league. Extremely motivated. He's had a good summer. He's a 6'3", 6'4" guy. He's always been a little bit lean. He's stronger. He's put on some good weight. Coming off a really strong camp with Vegas, his NHL camp, and that's a big motivating factor for him. So there's no question he's a very complete player, as evidenced as the co-defensive player of the year as well. So Connor Milburn will be a big piece of our success, and I think we've got a lot of pieces around him to help drive that. Obviously, he'll get a little bit more attention this year. We had Jared Westcott on one of his wings last year, who led the league in scoring. So Millie's going to have to find some different ways to make things happen, and we'll have to get creative to put him in those situations and build the right lines around him. Same thing in our D-core, much more experienced D-core. We played 3 freshman D every game last year, some games 4 freshman D. Now we only have 1 freshman D in this year's lineup. Adam Barone is a guy who'll come in and compete. He's done a really good job early on. But those returning guys, Nate Schweitzer, Evan Bushy, Brian Huggins, Jack Blanchett, all ready to take a step forward. We'll need that from them. And I think our transfer defenseman, Jacob Conrad's another one in that mix that had a redshirt year that's looked really good. But 2 transfer D that will come in at experience, Johnny Druskinis out of Michigan and Mike Brown out of Merrimack. Both good size, tough. They're tough players. They're going to fit in well. They're going to lead us in a lot of good ways. And I think we've upgraded our D core, both with guys getting more experience, so that returning group, but those guys in the transfer portal. And then lastly, just a quick look at our goaltending. That's probably the question mark in terms of not a ton of experience back there. If Easton Hassett played a handful of more games, and his minutes qualified in the CCHA or nationally, he would have clearly led the CCHA in both goals against average and save percentage. Probably a bad coaching job by myself to not get him more opportunities and more minutes with the job he had or job he did. But if Easton can play even close to that level, he'll be one of the top goalies in the CCHA and country. So he's going to get some opportunities early on to try to replicate what he did there in those opportunities he did get. But we have Grant Riley behind him also through the transfer portal. He spent a year backing up Devin Levy and then the 4th round draft pick Cameron Whitehead. So it's been tough for him to get some starts, but he's done a really good job. A competitive goalie, tremendous size. And then Rourke Appleby, our freshman goalie, has been kind of as we thought. He was the CCHL goalie of the year, playoff MVP a couple years ago. Fortunately, got hurt late last year and couldn't finish the playoff run with West Kelowna in the BCHL. But a very athletic, very capable goalie who loves to compete. So it's a quick look at our team. Experience, great locker room, great culture there, great leadership, and we think we've got a lot of good pieces to get back to the top home ice where we were just, I think, 1 win away from that last year with a young team.
Thank you, Damon. We have a question from Jared Robedo. Yeah, I got two of them for you here, Damon. I want to start with the experience that you touched on, and does it almost feel like you guys are maybe ahead of schedule right now, kind of in this preseason process in terms of, where you are at, most years with this kind of added experience from that, that you brought back from last year?
Jared, I think one thing that, in some ways, yes, but I think also some things we've learned from that WCHA championship, some other strong teams, every year's new. So even though there is more experience, there's some guys in there who can take ownership of it. You have to start over. You have to rebuild. You have to do it properly. You can't skip steps. So yes and no. But I do know where we are ahead of schedule, Jared. Is just, I'm a big believer in your players leading your team if you're going to have a championship level team. And again, we have the guys in that locker room that can lead from a player's perspective, not waiting for a coach to step in, not waiting for somebody else to take leadership. They can do that. So we're certainly ahead of schedule in that area, Jared.
And kind of to follow up on that, with this group, they made a run to the Mason Cup semifinals last year, and you said, Bemidji State was just on a mission. But how much kind of fuel and motivation can they take from getting to that spot next year and hoping to take it at least one step further?
Yeah, I think it's critical. I think it's a really important piece of it. You've got to learn, you've got to be there. Obviously, you have to go on the road. And I think that came down to the last game of the regular season. Had we won, I think we were a home ice team, and but we didn't. We had a couple of lulls. Tom also talked about consistency, and that was an area at times. Had one or two off weekends that really cost us. So I think that consistency lesson and that what does it take to win in the playoffs lesson, they're both sitting there, and that can be a big motivating factor for what we want to do this year. Thanks, Jared.
Thank you.
Dave Ellis.
David.
Dave, you out there? Trent. We'll come back to Dave.
Hey, Coach, Trent Singer with the Rink Live. You touched on Connor, and I'm curious to know, just his to have him back as that 1C with Dawson as well on that wing. I mean, how valuable is that to have those two back, and just the chemistry that they bring back into the season?
That's huge. I mean, again, he was only a sophomore last year and just had a huge breakout year. And I would still say it's tip of the iceberg for Connor. And fortunately, he's a young man that's motivated on his own. We'll certainly do our part as well. But, he wasn't resting on the laurels of last year and having a big breakout year offensively or some of the accolades he won. So he had a great summer. Like I said, he's bigger, he's stronger. His shots improved this year. So I think there's no question he has a chance to, add upon a breakout year and just be a really tremendous player for us. And, still just a junior, but it's big. And Dawson Tritt's a big piece of that, and Timo, some other guys. So we're just getting to the point now, Trent, where we're starting to establish some line work, some chemistry. Those guys played together a huge chunk of last year, so they're there. But we're looking at those guys, as major catalysts for our team.
And then one more here from Dave, I believe he's here now.
Yeah, hi, Wits. Dave Ellis from TV6 and Fox UP and Marquette. Statistically, you're one of the best scoring teams in the conference last year, really efficient scoring. The one really glaring miss is in the faceoff circle, that you're fighting from behind and having to go hunt the puck all the time. How do you get better possession and let that efficient offense go to work a little easier?
Well, again, Dave, some of that was that inexperience. Again, Connor was a key player, but only a sophomore, and he's such a long player. He doesn't have some of the strength of some of those fifth years out there, some other guys with lower leverage points. So I think a lot of it's that way. We played, I think, two freshmen center a lot of nights as well. Those guys will get a little bit more experience. We've got some flexibility between a guy like Dawson Tritt, Timo Backus can play center or wing. Johnny Harrington can play center or wing. So I think, Dave, we're hoping a little bit of that is just that experience factor. We come back, we're a little bit older, a little bit wiser. We've been through those battles. You learn how to cheat a little bit better. Obviously, we're also looking at, the change in rules where we're not getting guys tossed out. When you have 11 freshmen in your lineup and then you get a freshman in there against a fifth year or fourth year, that can be challenging. So hopefully, Dave, we can coach them better, but also some experience will help us between the face-off dots.